All right, so we're going to be practicing the homework together in class today. So if you guys have any problems or questions or issues, you can ask me for help. But this is essentially what your homework will look like, hopefully on a regular basis. So today we're looking at the 6 perspectives on psychology. Um, our goal by the end of the video is that we will be able to identify and explain the 6 perspectives of psychology by completing a chart which looks like this. But you will start off by answering what is a perspective on psychology, and then you'll fill this chart out by identifying the perspective, summarizing the perspective in your own words, and then by giving like an example, which we'll be focusing on the behavior of one person helping another. So you'll be giving the example of why does this perspective explain people helping each other or not helping each other. So you might need to rewind, you might need to pause, but that's what's great about the video is that you're able to do that. So if at any time you need a piece of information, you missed it, just rewind it, watch it again, and then you can come back over to your capture sheet and complete that. So what is a psychological perspective? Basically, it's just different approaches in psychology. It's how a psychologist views the behavior and thought processes that they're observing. Um, it involves their own beliefs or assumptions about human behavior. Perspectives can overlap; they're not totally mutually exclusive and divided. And people that share a perspective can have different ideas. So that could mean a cognitive psychologist might have different ideas than other cognitive psychologists, but they just kind of share some of the same beliefs about behavior. The first perspective we're going to look at is the cognitive perspective. Behavior is explained by mental functions such as memory, perception, attention. So essentially, this perspective would say that behavior is based on what's in your head, what's going on there. Those mental processes are influencing your behavior. That was originally an idea by this guy right here. This is Plato, an ancient philosopher. I wouldn't say he's a psychologist, but an ancient philosopher who believed that all of our behavior, what we do, comes from in our heads. It's not environment. It's our thoughts, it's our cognitive processes. It basically focuses on how people think about information and how they process information. So they kind of compare human brains to computers. So computers have an ability to intake information. They have the ability to store that data, and then they have an ability to recall that data later and use it to output information, just like human brains do. For example, they would explain people helping each other based on our individual interpretation of an event. That would affect how we respond. So, what our own thoughts are, what our own history is, that's going to affect if we are willing to help somebody or not. Second perspective is the biological perspective, and this explains behavior by explaining it with brain chemistry, genetics, glands, etc. So we really don't have much control over our behavior. It's kind of, it's there. It's in our brains, it's in our bodies already. So the biological perspective focuses on those biological factors. So chromosomes, hormones, your brain, that influences your behaviors, your thought processes, your emotions, and basically your behavior is inherited through your parents, through your genetics. So if your parents were a certain way, if there's a good chance that you'll be that same way too. An example of a person helping someone else, they would explain that by saying brain chemistry controls the emotions and thoughts that eventually produce helping someone. So that's why, like if your genetics, predispose you to helping somebody, then you will. If they don't, then you're not going to help other people. The third perspective is social cultural perspective. Basically, behavior is explained by the influence of other people in the environment. So what's going on in our environment is going to inspire our behavior. Basically, it focuses on the social cultural perspective focuses on how mental processes and behavior change based on the environment or situation. So if you're from a different culture, if you're from a different part of the world, if your surroundings require you to help each other, then you're going to help each other. So basically, if our culture values helping, we're going to help people. But if our culture values kind of letting people just struggle and be on their own, then we're not going to help somebody else. So that's the social cultural perspective on psychology. Number 4 is the behavioral perspective. Basically, behaviors explained by previous learning from stimuli found in the environment. This is kind of what you imagine probably when you think of psychology. You picture some people in a laboratory with white coats on, experimenting on rats or other animals, trying to get them to reproduce a certain behavior. That comes from this guy, this cool looking dude right here. This is B.F. Skinner, and he's essentially, people call him the father or founder of behavioral psychology. He developed a lot of these experiments, and honestly, a lot of the stuff that we do in schools with rewards and punishment are based on his research. It basically focuses on behavior being based on learning through rewards, punishments, observations. So we learn because, I'm going to be to class on time because I was given, some kind of a coupon for a homework pass. Like I don't have to do homework, so I'll be coming to class on time all the time. Or I'm going to come to class on time because I'm being punished. If I don't, I'll have detention. That's behavioral psychology. So you see the little picture of this mouse. Basically, they get some kind of stimulus, either a punishment or a reward, to try to encourage a behavior. So an example of helping someone, basically, if we have witnessed or we have personally been rewarded for helping somebody, we are going to be more likely to help that person in the future. 5, we have the humanistic perspective. Basically, behavior is explained as being motivated by satisfying our basic needs for survival, essentially, so safety, hunger, thirst, etc., with the goal of reaching one's full potential once basic needs are met. So basically what that means is we're looking at the whole person when we're observing behavior, and that each person's unique and individual on this journey. And basically through free will, individuals attempt to reach their full potential. And you can see from this pyramid here, physiological needs are on the bottom. So those are the basic needs. So breathing, food, water, shelter, clothing, sleep. You need those to live. You need those to survive. But once those are met, you can start moving up the pyramid all the way up to full self-actualization, basically realizing your full potential. So, you're really developing more as a human being. The way they would look at helping somebody is basically if our needs have been met for nourishment, if we're surviving, then we will consider helping someone. We can get to a higher level of actually helping someone. Otherwise, if we're not able to meet our own needs, if I can't eat, I'm not going to help you eat because I don't have that ability. I'm not that comfortable yet. Finally, we have the psychodynamic perspective. This is behaviors explained through unconscious motivation and unresolved inner conflicts from one's childhood. So this idea stems from this guy right here, Sigmund Freud, probably one of the most famous psychologists of all time. And his thoughts on what happened to us when we were children continue on in life. So if we have unresolved issues from our childhood, like my mom didn't love me enough, or I always had a problem with making my parents happy, something like that, you will still have issues with that later on. And so we have a picture to the right here of from the television show The Sopranos, which that is what you almost sometimes vision as going to a psychologist. So this gentleman here, Tony Soprano, comes to his psychologist and he just talks about his problems, and she asks questions, basically trying to get to the root of his problems, which would usually be from his childhood, problems he had when he was younger. So this is the modern version of all that, the psychoanalytic perspective, but it focuses on how behavior is affected by unconscious drives and conflicts. I mean, we're not aware that the childhood is the problem, so we have to go through these processes to figure that out. They would explain helping somebody as these unresolved inner conflicts within inside of us, these issues we have, they'll affect whether we can help each other or not. If maybe we have an issue inside of us that we aren't aware of, that's why we're not helping somebody. I never help anybody. Why is that? Okay, well, I need to reflect and look at myself and talk to somebody and figure out what my unresolved issues are. So just for the review, the 6 perspectives on psychology are the cognitive perspective, the biological perspective, the social cultural perspective, the behavioral perspective, the humanistic perspective, and the psychodynamic perspective. So now you're going to want to make sure that you have your chart filled in, and then you turn it into Google Classroom.